You're watching the tight end come off the slot pretty much unchecked. He gets the release. They think that's a touchdown. Grant Delpit's not in the picture, and then boom, he closes. What's up, Browns fans? Time now for episode 2 of the Browns Breakdown, where we break down the film with the Athletics draft analyst, their draft guru, Dane Brugler, a man who knows scouting like the back of his hand. That's how good he is at it. And we're going to talk about Grant Delpit. Now, Dane, you know I was fired up when the Browns got Delpit in the second round. I think he's a first-round talent. And if you go back to 2018, you could make the case he was the most dominant defensive player in all of college football. Sacks, interceptions, tackles for loss, pass breakups, you name it, he got it. That's why he got to wear number 7 for LSU in 2019, a very prestigious honor. And now he battled through injury, and there's going to be some stuff on here that shows why a guy who is a top 15 player coming out of the 2018 season was there at 44. But I think when we look back at this, we will say the Browns got one of the great steals of the draft in 2020 in Grant Delpit.
Yeah, and I think there's a good chance you could be right. You know, safeties, they're the last line of defense. And so trust at the position is absolutely critical. And if the coaches can't trust you, that's where safeties could run into some issues. But I think that, you know, the main reason why Delpit was still available in the second round, his film from 2019 was a mix of everything, positive and negative. And so it's easy to spot what he does well and maybe where he needs to get better in a few areas if he's going to live up to the hype of, when he came into the season as a top 15 pick and as a player that, has starting potential, has the ability to be a decade-long starter in this league. But first up, I think we have to address the tackling questions. And I think anyone who studied Delpit or followed his draft stock over the last year, they know that the missed tackles were a big question mark on the resume. Some of it was injury related. Some of it is just it's technique related. So this first play we have queued up here, it's a first down play versus Vanderbilt. He's lined up as a single high safety. He reads the option play, okay? And you can see him as he starts his pursuit of the running back. It looks like he has him lined up, but the back puts a little move on him, cuts back inside, forces Delpit to fly past him without making contact, and it's 6 points. And, we can look at this from the all-22 angle, and we can see how he is the last line of defense on a play like this. And so it is absolutely critical that he makes a contact, and he's not able to do it, unfortunately, and it's 6 points. And as we shift to the end zone view here, you can see how it's a really well-executed play by Vandy. Hat on a hat up front. The blockers, they're doing their job. And Keyshawn Vaughn, the running back, he's no slouch. I mean, the Bucs drafted him in the third round. Good chance we'll see him getting some big-time touches this year in the NFL. But as it pertains to Delpit, most of these missed tackles that he had this year, they were just like this, fly-by misses where he's going full steam and trying to adjust his pursuit angle where he thinks the running back's going to be instead of properly breaking down. You want to see him keep his feet underneath him, find the balance, at the very least slow him down. Because if he simply makes contact here, the reinforcements, they're not too far behind. It would still be a big play, but not a touchdown. So you want to see him keep his feet underneath him here and make better contact, not have these fly-by misses.
Yeah, you see the instincts, you see the closing speed, but as you mentioned, you got to be able to break down. And one thing I will point out is that when you got into the playoffs last year, Delpit didn't miss a tackle in the playoff run for LSU that led them to that national championship. But this is one of the things I know he doesn't like to talk about it, and it's something that the Browns are going to emphasize with him is, look, let's get your technique. Let's get you breaking down the way you need to, because instincts can't be coached, and he clearly has those. Closing speed like that can't be coached. He's got that. Now it's just a matter of once you diagnose, you get there, making the play and finishing it.
Yeah, and I'd also say that the want to is there. The issues as a run defender, it really just comes down to the fundamentals, and those are fixable. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and it's not something that there'll be some bumps in the road, but it's something that he'll gradually get better at, and something I'm sure the coaches are going to put an extra emphasis on once they get out in the practice field. So next, let's move to the passing game, because even though the inconsistency as a run defender, that's one of the main reasons he fell. But what he can do in the passing game, that's why Browns fans should be excited about this Delpit edition. And we're going to show the good and the bad here. I think first start off with an area where he needs to get better. This is a passing play from the Utah State game going up against Jordan Love. And we see this is a cover one look. We can pause it right there. Cover one look. So it's the defense playing man coverage underneath versus the 4 wide. with one high safety, and that's Delpit at the far right of your screen. And one of the reasons coaches love cover one is it forces quarterbacks to throw the ball outside. And so on this play, the boundary defensive back covering the slot, he knows he has that inside help, which is Delpit. So he guards against that outside throw. The slot receiver runs the inside post. Jordan Love, he takes the bait. And this should have been an interception for Delpit. You can see him. He's at that single high perch. He just takes the wrong angle. His eyes are locked on Love, and he misjudges the spacing relationship between him and the receiver, taking a poor angle. And because Delpit misjudged this, it really should have been a catch and a score on the inside post for Utah State. Luckily for LSU, he dropped it. So, again, talking about being the last line of defense, these subtle missteps can affect the scoreboard. So this is an area where I think later in the season you saw him get a lot better. But this is something where he can tighten up, improve that spatial relationship between the route and the passing lane.
Listen, we'll take a few missteps if this pushes Grant Delpit down to us in the second round, because Dane, let's show him this play where you see just how good Grant Delpit can be.
Yeah, and this is against Vanderbilt. He's lined up man-to-man. This is definitely a positive play. You see him in the slot, lined up against the tight end, playing more of it, the man coverage underneath. And he does a great job right at the snap where he's going to extend and he's going to make contact. He's going to let the tight end know, hey, I'm going to challenge you right away. And he stays square to carry that inside pattern. But instead, the tight end, he's going to do more of a curl. You see him quickly flip his hips, work back outside. And once the tight end breaks off that curl, Delpit's right on top of him. And he uses that length to poke the ball away. This is a third down play. So Delpit knows that there's a good chance that route, it's going right to the sticks. And he knows where it was coming. It allowed him to play tight, play physical. This play forced a punt, and he really makes it look easy here with his ability to play tight coverage and make the pass defense knock the ball away.
Dane, we saw what he could do in coverage from the slot in the last one. Let's see what he can do when he's playing safety off of the ball, diagnosing, reacting, closing, making plays.
Yeah, and we see this play against Florida where it's a situation where we know it's a passing play, empty backfield, and you can see Grant Delpit before the snap's even happening. He is barking out orders. He's telling everyone where to be lined up. He sees what is happening, and that was a big part of his responsibility, wearing that number 7 this year, being a leader, and I think we see it here on this play. He understands what each responsibility is doing. He sees that linebacker pass off the tight end, and then he's able to close like nothing to arrive with the ball, dislodge it, and instead of 6 points, we're talking about an incomplete pass. Just outstanding closing speed, outstanding awareness. And I mentioned how you have to know everything going on the field if you're a safety, and understanding these spatial relationships. This is an example of a positive play here where he's able to close and arrive with the ball. And this is Kyle Pitts, who we'll be talking a lot next year, being one of the top tight ends in the 2021 draft. He arrives, perfect timing, the closing speed's outstanding, incomplete pass, not a touchdown.
And you look at that as we go back and take a look at that again. He knows what's coming. It looks like maybe on the left side there's a little bit of miscommunication. They don't quite have it figured out, because as this play goes, and I'll give you a second here, as you pause it right here, he's covering 2 guys.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately for him, they're both kind of in the same spot, and I think that Florida probably would have wanted a little different. But when you're the quarterback, that ball's out of his hand. Grant Delpit is 7 yards away from the receiver and he's on the hash, receivers in the middle. They probably think that's a touchdown as soon as he's letting that ball go. If we have do we have the end zone view on this one? Take a look at it from the quarterback's perspective here. You're watching the tight end come off the slot pretty much unchecked. He gets the release. They think that's a touchdown. Grant Delpit's not in the picture, and then boom, he closes. That's the difference. That's the difference between a touchdown and them maybe having to settle for a field goal in the red zone. But I can promise you that quarterback, when he throws that ball, thinks that's an easy 6. And Delpit says, not so fast. That's the kind of playmaking that the Browns have missed on the back end of their defense. And that's what you hope you can get from Grant Delpit. You saw it, as we said, in the slot 2 plays ago. Here he is back as the safety, reading the quarterback, reading the routes. And it's those instincts that he had that allowed him to go ahead and make this breakup.
Exactly. We talk about free safeties, mentioned the spatial relationship. That's what it's always about, being able to reach a point like that. And with the closing speed that he has, and you see the physicality when he arrives and he makes that hit, that is not an easy hit to make. And so that's a big time play by a big time safety, showing the range, the instincts, and just finishing with that physicality. It's a big time play by Delpit, and one of the reasons why I think you have to be absolutely excited for what he can do in coverage.
You're talking about a guy who can play single high for you. You're talking about a guy who can also come down, cover the tight ends, cover guys in the slot in man-to-man. And you think about the evolution of the NFL, all you have left is disguise on defense. And when you have a safety who's versatile like Delpit, and you got a guy next to him most likely who's also versatile in Carl Joseph, Andrew Sendejo as well, that gives Joe Woods a lot of options on what he wants to do on defense. But it's those ball skills, the ability to get his hands on the football. That's one of the things that really attracted the Browns to Grant Delpit.
Absolutely. And look, it's hard to play safety. You have so many responsibilities. There are so many things, especially when you're playing single high and you have to read all these different route combinations. You have to understand the pre-snap reads. And so there's a lot that you have to work through. And so, like we saw against Utah State, one little misstep and that can affect the scoreboard. So it's something where he has a lot of positive plays on his resume coming from the SEC, playing a lot of ball. I think that versatility you mentioned, that's key because you can line him up man-to-man in the slot. You can line him up as a single high player. He can play different coverages. He understands with his from an instinctive standpoint, but he also has the physicality and he has the athleticism. So for the Browns to get a player like Grant Delpit where he did, where consistency knocked him down a little bit, but the talent, there's no question about that talent. So if the Browns get that consistency out of him, it's going to look like an absolute steal.
A guy with some serious Pro Bowl potential, a lot of pedigree, national champion. He was voted the best defensive back in the nation in 2019. And folks, he was better in 2018. And if he can get that form with the Browns will have a perennial stud on the back of their defense. Thanks for joining us for Browns Breakdown number 2, taking a look at Grant Delpit.